This is a podcast about one woman's mission to help entrepreneurs and business owners write better business books. Each week, we tackle your writing excuses, because there are excuses too, and help you beat the blank page of doom so that you can write the book that'll grow your life and your business. Now here's your host, Vicky Fraser.
Hello and welcome to the 1000 Authors Show. I'm Vicky Fraser and this is my husband Joe.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
I think we should start off this podcast by stating how very unhappy I am with the state of my hair and the state of your hair. Actually, I'm happy with the state of your hair. We'll get to the actual podcast in a minute, but if you're not watching the video, at least go to YouTube and have a look, because I cut Joe's hair and it looks pretty good. It's a little bit tufty in places.
Bit scrappy today, but
it looks pretty good. I think I did a pretty good job, and I did it and I was like, yes, I'm going to become a hairdresser. That's going to be my new career. And then on Sunday morning, I cut my own fringe and it did not go well. I'm not happy about it at all. And my hairdresser even sent me a how-to video, which I watched twice.
And then didn't do what she told you.
I did. I tried really hard to do what she told me, and so I thought my eyebrows were a lot higher up than they are, or maybe I was doing it with my eyebrows as raised as they could possibly be, because it very definitely is not eyebrow length now. And then it wasn't straight, so I had to snip a bit more off, and it's very bad.
Never mind, eh?
So welcome to the 1000 Authors Show. I'm Vicky Fraser and this is my husband Joe.
Hello! We've done this already.
And we're drinking coffee, really nice coffee.
Because it is 11 o'clock in the morning and it's too early for booze and we're both at work.
Yes. So this week we are back on writing excuses again, and we are tackling the writing excuse, I don't know enough to write a book. But before that, oh my God, I can't even because I just keep seeing my hair and it's just too bad. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, what are we reading? Joe, what are you reading?
I'm reading a series of books called The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. On towards the end of book 11, something like that. It's just...
What else are you reading?
I'm not really reading anything else, and you keep telling me I should read something else, and I probably should.
There's a stack of books on the coffee table that you need to read, one of which you started reading the other day, called How to Argue with a Racist.
That's true. It's because I was just kind of slumped, waiting, doing nothing very much.
Well, unslump and do the work. I am reading Kindred by Octavia Butler, which I discovered Octavia Butler after really loving N.K. Jemison's books, and so everyone was like, oh, if you love N.K. Jemison, you should totally read Octavia Butler. So I did, and I've actually just finished it. I've just started reading something else, but Kindred is awesome, and it's like a time travel-y thing, but that's not the point of the story. That's almost incidental. But it's about a black woman who gets sucked back in time to the antebellum South, and it's an amazing story and kind of horrifying, as you would expect it to be. But yeah, it's awesome. And so now I'm kind of frantically trying to find every book Octavia Butler has ever written, because that's what I do when I find an author I like. I'm like, I need everything by them. And I'm also reading How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi, which is brilliant. And again, like, just fascinating, just the history and just stuff that you don't, you just don't think about if you're white, because why would you? Because we live in, a world that's structured for us, really. Well, not for me, for you. But yeah, it's and that's not blaming you for anything. It's just the way the world is. But it doesn't have to be that way, and we want to change it, so which is why we're doing the reading. I'm also reading Grit by Angela Duckworth. I haven't really kind of started that yet, but that's the Bookaholics book for this month. Okay. So I'm reading that as well. I'm reading many books at the moment.
Many books.
I'm also doing many training courses at the moment, including a course on critical thinking.
It's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. It's quite complicated because I have to watch the same video over and over again, because I'm not a philosophy student, never really have been. I've done a little bit of light reading. But yeah, I want to make sense, and I want to be able to debate with people properly. and thoughtfully. And I just, I think I'm not bad at thinking, but I could be much better at critical thinking. So yeah, so that's what I'm doing at the moment, along with many, many other things. And in the Dingle, what have we been doing? We've got Stephen the hedgehog.
Yeah.
He is ambling around our garden, which is really lovely. We sheared the tiny sheeps. Actually, we did not.
We sheared the tiny sheeps last year. We
Did not do a good job.
We didn't do a great job.
We didn't do a bad job.
It's fun, but it's fun
Nobody
for us.
enjoyed it.
So this year we had the opportunity to throw our sheep in with a chap who was getting a shearer round to do his pet sheep.
Yeah.
So we were like, yes, please.
And they're all related. His pet sheep are related to our pet sheep.
Yes.
So it's a family affair.
Yeah. So they got sheared and they look great.
They do look great.
They suddenly look very goatee rather than sheepy.
They've got really big heads. And they were so good. They were so good. Really good. And now we've moved them back to the Dingle again. So we brought them back through the village on Sunday. And again, they were so good.
Just came with us. We just walked through the village and the sheep came.
They're good boys. And we've started digging out the courtyard because we haven't got enough other stuff to do. So we've started yet another project. I think we should just pick one and finish it. Let's finish the courtyard.
Yeah, because summer's here and we'd quite like to have a nice place to kind of, eat dinner and have a nice time outside.
Yeah, so there's all that stuff going on. Also, I have a bee called Beatrice living in my office. She's a mason bee and she's awesome. And I have to make sure that I come in early in the morning at the weekends to open the windows so that she can get in and out. And I have to make sure that she's in her burrow at night before I close my windows and doors and stuff. So that's fun. Beatrice the bee. Right, anyway, on to books and writing books. The Writing Excuses series, not really excuses, but it sounds better to say writing excuses, more concise than totally legitimate reasons people give me for not writing their book. And this week we're talking about that old chestnut, I don't know enough to write a book.
Right.
You probably do. Podcast ends.
And we're done.
Yeah. Do you think I need to expand on that a little bit?
I think we should probably go for another 5 minutes or so.
Okay, cool. Okay, so yeah, I basically bet you are expert enough. You know more than you think. You definitely know more than you think you do. I can say that for 100% sure because we forget the stuff that we know. Does that make sense? Yeah,
and I think as well you forget. It's not just that you forget you forget the things you know. This coffee's really strong. You forget how little other people know on your topic. You kind of assume everybody's got a base level that makes sense to you from your position of experience and skill. And as such, you're wrong.
Yeah. We can talk a bit about Dunning-Kruger here, actually. Not in the pejorative sense where, people just fling it around, but in the sense that it's a very real phenomenon that when you don't know what you don't know, you're like just totally ignorant and you go spout rubbish all over the place. And it's just like you are so ignorant that you don't even know that.
Yeah, you don't know there are things you don't know.
Yeah, you don't know that there are things that you don't know, and you see it a lot on social media where you get like armchair experts and everything, and we've all done it. I've been guilty of it before. I've spouted off about stuff I don't know about, and so yeah, there's that kind of effect. And then the next level is that you know just enough to become a bit dangerous.
Yes.
So you're like, oh, I know a bit about this. I'm just going to like spout off even more. And you don't really know, you just have started to get an awareness of it. And then there's the next stage, which is, I
know a fair bit.
And now I don't know anything.
I can see there's an awful lot of stuff I don't know.
Yeah, and that can trigger imposter syndrome then, because you're like, oh my God, I've just become aware of how very ignorant I am. And then you're like, oh, what am I doing? And I think that is where people are at when they're talking about, I don't know enough to write a book. You might very well be right down at the bottom and you just don't know stuff, in which case you probably shouldn't write a book about it. But if you are running a business that's moderately successful, that, that isn't getting people complaining about what you do, then I suspect that you know enough to know that you need to know more. And that's a good thing. I'm never going to stop learning about writing books and publishing books and stuff because I'm never going to know everything about it. Nobody can ever know everything about everything. So as long as you're in that learning mindset, I think that probably you do know. And then, like you say, the other effect that has is that when you do start to gain a higher level of knowledge, you then assume that everybody else knows, and you forget what you used to be like. You forget when you were like right down there knowing absolutely nothing. That's where a lot of people are right now. And that's when you start writing in such a way that people can't really understand what you're talking about, because you forget that you have to, it's like, oh, I don't want to talk about the basics, that's boring and it'll bore people. And it's like, it won't bore people. We had a conversation about this the other day, actually, about teaching at the studio, and somebody was worried that she didn't want to keep teaching the same stuff over and over again every week. And like, I piped up, and because I'm in her classes, and I said, I love when you go over the same stuff over and over again, because I quite often have to do something several times before it sinks in and before I understand why I'm doing it. And it's also, the basic stuff. And so when I'm teaching people handstands as well, I'm not just like, right, we're going to go upside down and we're going to do loads of stuff. I spend maybe 15, 20 minutes doing handstands with people at the end of the class. And the first 40 minutes or so is all conditioning and positioning and making sure that your wrists are strong enough, because you're putting 8, 9, 10 stone of weight on top of your hands, and all of that kind of stuff that you need to go through first. That, yeah, you know what, I've seen handstand coaches do this. It's like, oh, we're just going to go upside down and we're going to do loads of stuff. And it's like, that's kind of fine if you do that a lot, but if people are like beginners and different levels, you can't just bring people upside down. You can't start
at an assumed level of competence and start talking about advanced techniques if people have no idea what the basic techniques are.
And I've been doing handstands for years, and even I'm not just like, I want to spend the whole time upside down, because I know that my form isn't perfect. I know that I haven't got the flexibility in my shoulders to do a perfect handstand, so I need to work on all sorts of things to make sure that I don't injure myself. So that's what we're kind of talking about, is you probably do know enough, but you've got to remember that other people know much less than you, and that it's okay to still need to know a lot more, because lifelong learning is I think that's what life is all about, really. One of the things that life is all about, anyway. So yeah, okay, I think that, and here's another way of looking at it as well. You don't have to be the most experienced or knowledgeable person in your industry to be able to write a book, as long as you're not claiming to be the most experienced and knowledgeable person in your industry, and that's very subjective anyway. I don't think that's a problem. You just have to remember, like Joe's just said, that you have to remember that you know more than the people that you're writing for.
Yeah.
A lot more. So yeah, I'm not, also just need to be clear about something, for a second suggesting that you set yourself up as an expert if you're not an expert. That is wrong and immoral and unethical, and you will be found out, and quite rightly, pilloried for it. But, I could look at what the book that I wrote a few years ago, my first book, Business for Superheroes, and I didn't know anything at all, but that's what I wrote about. I wrote about the fact that I was just starting up, and all of the things that I'd learned in the last year or so of running a business.
All the things you'd had to sort out, and all the things you'd picked up, and all the different arenas of work that you were putting effort into.
Yeah, and I would never expect or offer my book to somebody who has been in business for more than a year or so, because it just, there's stuff in there that I would not write that book now, because I am not the same person as I was. But back then, it got me as far as it got me, and now I've started learning more stuff. So it's still a good book for people who have just started a business to read, and I know that because people read it all the time and then tell me. That's not to say that I would give it to somebody who's been running a business for 10 years. No way, I'd be embarrassed, because it's not a book for them. So yeah, I hope that makes that clear.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah. And another thing to remember is that as you write your book, you will become more of an expert in your subject matter, because that happens. It just happens naturally. It's really funny.
The more time you spend thinking about and learning about and writing about your topics, your skills and your knowledge, the more they develop, of course.
Ooh.
And it's very easy as well, I think, when you're busy doing something. If you're a mechanic or a dog groomer or a hairdresser or whatever it is that you're doing for your business, graphic design, web design, whatever, you might not be putting as much effort as you could be into developing your skills and your knowledge. You're probably spending most of your time doing stuff that earns you money.
And running around and chasing your own tail.
Chasing invoices and, paying the mortgage and trying to meet new clients and all that kind of stuff. So the very act of writing the book is self-development. Yeah,
that's a really good point. Yeah, it's a really good point. And, while we're on the subject, if you're thinking, how am I going to have time to do any of this? And we've covered time in podcasts a lot before, so I'm not going to go into it now. But one thing that you can do, and Joe just made a really good point, if you're running around chasing invoices and things, get yourself a virtual assistant.
Hi, Harriet.
Hi, Harriet. Harriet is wonderful in so many ways, and you don't have to like chuck everything at your virtual assistant. It's like, just be like, okay, I'm going to get a bookkeeper so I don't have to spend time doing that. I'm going to get somebody who could answer the phone for me and chase invoices. I don't chase my own invoices anymore. Apart from anything else, I think it's good to remove yourself from that because it's a very emotive place to be. And like, you used to do it for me, didn't you?
Yeah.
Sometimes, because I would be like, oh, I feel really awkward chasing money, and then I would get upset about it and all the rest of it, and it's just like, well, Joe doesn't care. I mean, he cares, but not, you know, it's not your business. So yeah, you can outsource that kind of thing. You don't have to chuck loads of money at it to start with, but if you can free up enough time to do A, some personal development, you know, business development, and B, more of what will make you money, then you'll pay for your assistant really, really fast. So top tip. Okay, so all of that being said, a couple of things. Make sure that you know who you're writing for and why. Is super, super important, and that will show you that, you know, if you're writing for somebody who knows nothing, then of course you know enough to write a book. If you're writing for other experts in your industry, maybe you don't, so don't write for other experts in your industry. So make sure that you know who you're writing for your book for and why. And then I just wanted to suggest a few things that you might be able to write about if you think you don't know enough. So maybe you haven't been running your business for 53 years and you've done all of the postgraduate courses involved in that kind of thing, and you don't, know as much as you possibly can. So here are a few things that you can do. You can write about your method. Why do you do things the way you do them? What makes you different? So, and I'm thinking particularly of dog trainers here, but also my book, actually. My book, How the Hell Do You Write a Book, was my method. It's like, that's my method for writing books. It's not the only method I use, but it's the method that I chose to write my book about because I think it's the simplest one to grasp and it gives people enough leeway to adapt it to what they want to do. But like, there are so many different ways of training dogs, and I'm not even going to mention any of them because apparently it starts fistfights really quickly. But your method as opposed to somebody else's. It's like, some people love clicker training, other people love sniffer training. I literally know nothing about training dogs, as you can probably hear. But yeah, you write about your method. Why you think that method is the best for your clients, why you've chosen that method, how it differs, what the alternatives are. Yeah,
write about a beginner's guide to all of the methods.
Yeah.
Other methods.
How to choose between all of these methods, what might be right for you, which you will absolutely have to leave your ego at the door for, because, it's really tempted to just go, that's a shit method and my method's great. And it's like, can't really, if you write like that, people are not going to trust you. So that's one idea. Why do you do things the way you do them? You can tell some client stories, obviously get their permission, or anonymise them. But a book full of client stories is an incredibly valuable thing. How have you helped people? What are they? And when I say client stories, it's like, take them right from the very first, this is the problem I have and this is why I sort you out, all the way through to what you're doing now. So it's like a proper story, and like that can fill a short chapter. Each client story can fill a short chapter, and people will find them incredibly valuable, because if we're going to work with someone, I want to know what results. If I'm going to work with you, I want to know what results you've got before, how you got them, what I felt at the time. I want to be able to connect with the person, who has done that work.
Yeah, because a big barrier to starting work with someone is not knowing how it's going to go.
Yeah.
Or not knowing the process or how much time it's going to take or anything. And you can either have an awful lot of conversations about that, or you can write a book. Yeah.
And when you're getting these stories, by the way, get the difficulties that people faced as well, because if all you hear, it's like when you look at reviews of things, it's really nice for your ego to be, oh, it was great and I love working with them and blah, 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 blah. It's actually not very helpful, because that almost, 99% of the time, work that you do with anybody doesn't go 100% smoothly. It just doesn't. It never does. There are always problems and hiccups and road bumps in the way. So talk about those as well, because if I can read a genuine story of like, here is a happy ending story, but you know what, along the way we had this problem and we bumped heads a bit here, and then we've sorted it out by doing this. That kind of thing is the kind of thing that's going to get me to want to work with you. Because in the back of your mind, there are always going to be problems.
Yeah, life's not a fairy story.
There's Beatrice.
No.
Life's not a fairy story. You want to know the real, the downs as well as the ups. So make sure that you put the story in full without breaking any confidences or, NDAs or whatever. What else could people write about? Origin stories.
Origin stories.
Yeah.
Starting your business. Why? How?
Yeah.
Problems you had.
All of that kind of thing. That can be useful. It doesn't have to be a massive book, remember. It can be a really slim volume. And here is a really good example of a really slim volume. I'm aware that this isn't going to be good for radio, but this is one of my authors, Carrie, sent me a copy of her new book, The Perfect Puppy Pocket Plan, 3 Easy Steps to Safely Raise Your Perfect Puppy in a Social Distancing World. She whacked this book out in the last few weeks, and it's only got 43 pages. And it's printed. It's a printed book.
Mm-hmm.
It's not thick enough to have the title on the spine, but that really doesn't matter. So you can write your origin story, and it'll probably be longer than 43 pages because there'll be all sorts of other things that you want to put in there as well.
Yeah.
What else can people write about?
Is there anything you disagree with in your industry?
Yeah.
Are there any problems with your industry? Why? What's going on there?
Yeah. There's loads of stuff that you could write about at the moment in your industry. With the whole, this thermal camera will be able to tell if somebody's got COVID. And it's like, no, it won't.
No, it won't.
And people are making a lot of money out of those cameras, aren't they?
Yeah. So just to explain that, I work with cameras and software, and I create inspections of things. So anything from engines, cars, cows, whatever, we can inspect them. Move it. Do a little bit of stuff with artificial intelligences. We do all kinds of things. One of the things that we have recently come into is elevated body temperature, which is about detecting when somebody has a fever. Now, if you point a thermal camera at somebody's face and say, how hot is that face? There are certain things you need to do to make it work. And there are an awful lot of systems out there that are not complying with those things, not even close. Anytime you see someone wearing glasses going through one of those thermal screens, they are not being accurately measured. Anytime you see more than one face on the screen at a time, they are not being accurately measured. Anytime you see somebody pointing something at your forehead, they're not being accurately screened.
And that's a real problem.
It's dangerous. There's a lot of companies out there that are just punting systems that are not really doing it. They may be great for PR. They maybe give people a warm, fuzzy feeling, but they're not checking for elevated body temperature.
No. And that's the problem. And you could write a whole book about that. And I think you should. I am not available at the moment, but I could be for enough money. That, by the way, is Bytronic Automation, and you should listen to these guys if you're even remotely in that field because you know what you're talking about.
Anybody wants some elevated body screening, and you've got elevated body temperature screening, we can do that, and we can do it to international standards, we can do it to WHO guidelines, we can do it accurately, and we can do it properly.
Yeah.
Or you can save a bit of money and buy an old security camera from China and just kind of give it a go.
Anyway, so yeah, what do you disagree with in your industry? Why? Write about that. Write blog posts about it as well. And, I would say for you guys, it's, you could write a book, but should be blogging about it and PRing about it as well.
Well, we are. We're making some noise.
Oh, good. So what else can you write about? Where do you see the future of your industry? Write about that. Mm-hmm. What's going to happen in the future? Where do you think things are going to go? What do people need to keep an eye out for if they are going to be buying stuff from your industry or working with people in your industry? How are things going to change? How do you see things changing? Especially right now. The world
is changing, right? All kinds of things are changing. Massively.
I mean, the world's always changing anywhere, it bloody should be. But right now, we are having more changes in a short space of time than... I don't know, any time in history. Probably not any time in history, but it seems to me like it is.
And this perfect puppy plan thing. Perfect puppy plan. 3 easy steps to safely raise your perfect puppy in a social distancing world. So that is quick, useful, and, now. Yeah.
And probably for the foreseeable future as well.
Yeah.
Don't know how long this is going to last for. It's all, anyway. So yeah. Something else you can do, go through all of your old blog posts and emails and articles. Is there anything in there that you can use? You can turn all of those into a book in their own right, by the way. But is there a common theme running through all of those books and, all of those blog posts and emails and articles? If there's a common theme, you've probably got enough there for a book. Mm-hmm. Or the beginnings of a book, at least. Interview your clients and find out what they would like to read in a book. Is there a book missing from your industry, from your genre, that people would like to find out more about? Maybe they've looked for a book on the subject and they haven't found one. Ask them what they'd like to read about. And finally, you could write a fictionalized story and turn that into a book, almost like a little parable. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple of really good examples if you want to see how this works. One of them is called The Go-Giver by Bob Berg. That's a really, really good little book about, how to get ahead by giving rather than asking all the time.
Right.
It's really nice. It's super short as well. Or there's the very famous, and you will absolutely have heard of it, Who Moved My Cheese, which is also like a little business parable.
Yeah.
So go and read those 2 books. And they're really short books, maybe that'll give you an idea for something that you could write about that's a little bit less obvious than a kind of self-help how-to type book. So hopefully that's given you a whole bunch of stuff that you can think about. Hopefully it's managed to convince you that you do know enough to write a book, because I'm sure you do. And yeah, what's the takeaway, Joe?
You know more than you think you do. You don't have to know everything. Nobody does. Write what you know about, write what you believe, and make sure you know who you're writing for.
And why.
And why.
Yeah. Okay, let's finish on a review. And it's Carrie Day today.
Hi, Carrie.
So Carrie wrote a review for us, a podcast review. Thank you so much, Carrie. We really appreciate this. She wrote it on January the 28th in 2019. And her title of the review is Just Like When You Get to the End of the Book, Joy But Also Disappointment. Do you want to read it, Joe?
After spending another weekend involving 13 hours of driving, I have listened to all of the available podcasts on my iPhone. So much great info in there. I felt a bit of a high working through them, but then a bit disappointed that they were all done. Like when you finish a book, but you're disappointed there's no more story to read. Where do I go now? How do I live with only one released per week? I've just gone back to the start. I've sent more people your way this weekend too, which I hope will go on to get your book and listen to your podcasts, as the podcasts, as well as your talks at Dom's events, hi Dom, have really helped me change my view on a lot of things, like why I can charge what I like for what I believe I am worth.
Oh, there you go. Thank you, Carrie. That's
Carrie.
A really nice review. Thank you. Guys, if you want to leave us a review, we'll read it out and feature you. And we'll tell everybody what you do and all the rest of it. And so, Carrie is a dog trainer in the UK. And I'm just looking for her. Anyway, you can go and find her book, The Perfect Puppy Pocket Plan, written by Carrie Stuthridge. And if you're looking at the YouTube, you can go and find it. The YouTube. You can go and find it on the Amazon and grab yourself a copy. And Carrie is also writing her kind of big book as well. And she wrote that as she brought it out of her big book to release as a little book. So coming up next week. That's not true. Next week, I'm interviewing Ryan Wallman, who is Dr. Draper on Twitter. He is the funniest marketer on Twitter. He is coming all the way from Australia to talk about marketing and why he wrote a book and Monty Python.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's going to be cool. And the waiting list for my live blank page to book in 90 days course is open. In fact, by the time you hear this, if you're on the waiting list, I think you might be able to register for it because I'm opening the registrations on Friday, which will be yesterday. I can't do time travel. You can go to moxiebooks.co.uk/90-day book course live, and the link is in the show notes. You can register there. It's a 12-week course. Go and find out more about it. I'm really proud of it.
Cool.
It's going to be great. If you listen to every episode, email me with your postal address and I will send you a special gift. And go and rate us and review us on iTunes. I'd be really grateful.
Yeah, that'd be great. 5 stars.
Or however many stars you think we deserve.
5.
We'll be back in a couple of weeks.
Cool.
Thank you for listening. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening. You can find links and show notes on the website at moxiebooks.co.uk/podcast, where you can also sign up for the best daily emails in the multiverse and find loads of free resources to help you write your book. We'll be back the same time next week with more tales from the book writing trenches and the latest on what the tiny sheeps have been up to.